Erev Torah. Let's continue talking about the holiday. There's so many halachot we have to learn. So let's talk about now preparing for Passover, right? The preparations. So what does that mean? We already said yesterday, you got to clean the house, right? Make sure everything is nice and neat, everything is good. So then, right, you got to make sure that all your kelim, the ones you're going to use for Passover, are kosher for Passover. The utensils, right? The silverware, the plates, So how do you do that, right? What do you do? How do you kosher everything there? So the rule is like this, that when it comes to silverware, right, the knives, forks, right, spoons, if you use them with hot, with boiling water, you have to also now use them with boiling water, to clean them, to kosher them. Same thing, right? The same way you use it is the same way you kosher it. The way that it goes in is the way it goes out. So if you use it with hot, with a boiling pot, you got to also kosher it with a boiling pot. If you didn't use it with hot, you just use it with cold, all you have to do is just wash it, with soap, that's it. You don't need to do nothing, right? You use it with cold, doesn't require to do hagala. Hagala is only for things which you use it with hot. That's the way you use it, that's the way you kosher it. That's the way it works, So it depends on what you got, right? What you're using stuff for. But here's the thing, there are certain things that even if you don't use it with hot, you still have to do hagala. You know what I'm talking about? We're talking about the knife, that you use for cutting stuff. You cut, with that, all kinds of things, right? Meat, you cut all kinds of foods, the things which are abrasive, So what happens is that when you do cutting like this, it causes heat to the knife, causes it to absorb flavors, of the food that you're using. So this is the reason why, even though you didn't use it with boiling the knife, you're just using it for cutting stuff. So that knife does require, hagala. You have to put it into the boiling water, even though you didn't use it for hot, because it's getting hot. Because when you're cutting it, with the abrasion and all that, right, all the stuff is going on there. It's grinding against, surfaces, right, and absorbing flavors like that. So knife, cutting knife, for cutting, you do hagala. You have to. So what does that mean? How do you do hagala? Take a big pot, right, the biggest pot you got in the house, boil up the water and put everything in there, all the kelim that you wanna, right, to the kosher, right? Boil it up, make sure it's nice and boiling, and then drop everything in, one by one. Don't drop everything together, because it's gonna be too heavy, the water won't get into it. One by one, right? Tuk, 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 like this, right? Drop it in. Each one is gonna get koshered, right? So that's it. So once you finish, everything, you put everything inside the pot, whatever you need to kosher. So then what do, right? You pour out the hot water and you rinse it with cold water. That's how you finish it, rinse it, put some cold water in there and rinse it out, and that's already ready to go, right? But before you do the hagala, you got to make sure, that your kelim are, the silverware, they're clean first. You have to wash them first, Make sure they're nice and clean. There's no garbage on it, and there's a residue or rust, things like this, right? All kinds of things. Make sure you clean it up good, and then you drop it into the hot water, right? Boiling water, everything. This is called hagala. This is how we do it, right?
How long is that hot water? How long?
You don't need any time, just 1 second. In and out, right? Exactly, that's it, right? In and out, yeah, that's it. So just let it drop in, and you let it drop in. You don't have to take it out, when you're putting it in. Let it drop in, and then you take everything out, in one shot. You pour it out.
You can use
right?
a plier, air plier, just plier.
Yeah, you don't need that, just drop it in, You don't have to use the pliers. Just drop it in there, one by one, drop. Everything drops in, it's going to go to the bottom. Then when you finish, right, you pour out the hot water, put in cold water, right, rinse it with cold water, and it's ready to go. Right? That's hagala, right? So also if you have smaller pots, or pans, right, that you want to kosher them, same thing, you got to put it in the boiling water also. So you got to use a big pot, the biggest pot you got, right? Your army pot, for the army, right? So you take that one and you put the smaller pots in there, to kosher them, in the pans, right? Hopefully they're going to fit in, right? If you don't have something to fit it in, so then what you got to do is, there are some guys, on Main Street, they set up, with these big pots, and they charge you a little something, and you go there, they have a big pot, everything fits in there. So if you can't fit it in your house, either buy a bigger pot or go to Main Street, whatever, and do it over there, right? There are some kids over there who can do it for you.
What if the mikvah, Rabbi?
Huh?
Mikvah.
Ah, mikveh. No, you don't need mikveh to kasher for Passover. Mikveh, you only need something which you bought something new, from the goy, right? You bought from something new. That you need for mikveh. But to kasher for Passover, you don't need mikveh. I don't need. You already put it one. Yeah, exactly. One time. That's it, right? That's it. One time is enough, right? It's for a lifetime. That's it, right? You don't have to do it again. That's the way it's done, Haggalah. So everything goes in there, right? But things which you use on the fire, dry, right? Like, the skewers, right? For the shish kebabs, Shampoo, right? So this, you cannot do Haggalah with this, It needs libun, because it was used on the fire, dry. You know what I mean? So you gotta, those things, which are used on the fire, dry, to kasher them, they need libun, which is a higher level. You got to put fire on it, and you wait till sparks come out, which is very hard to get to this level. It's not so easy, That's why the best thing to do is, right, buy a new one, exactly, right. Buy a new one or have special one for Passover. Or, right, the other thing you can do is just don't use it with chametz all year, Don't put chametz on it. And then you don't have to kasher it. you didn't put nothing there, right? It's just meat, basar. You don't have to kasher for basar. You know what I mean? You have to kasher if you put some chametz there. Some pitot, some bread or whatever, something. Otherwise, you don't need to kasher. What are you kashering for? You're kashering the meat? Right? The meat is already kosher for Passover. That doesn't need nothing. That's the thing, right? So you got to know how to do all these things, right? Also, if you have a barbecue, right, and you want to use it, same thing, you got to do libun on that, the grate, the reshet, right? You got to do libun. It's hard to do libun on this, you know what I mean? It's difficult. So that's why, same thing, right? Either don't put chametz on it, all year. Don't put pitot on it. Right? And you can use it for Passover. If you don't touch it with chametz, you can you do it with basar, use it with meat, that's it, right? Then you don't have to, you never put chametz on it, so that's it, it doesn't need nothing.
How about mango?
Mangal, that's what I'm talking about. Like me, my mangal, I have a mangal for 3 years. I never put chametz on that. Never. I never put one pita on that. Never. That's it.
If you put chametz, you cannot use.
You have to do libun, which is very hard, so it's gonna be difficult for you, what I mean, to do libun. You have to get a blowtorch, and wait till sparks come out. It's gonna take you an hour to do this, God knows if you have to bring. You have to be a professional, have to be, It's not so. Yeah, so that's the thing, So either buy a new one, or just don't use it with chametz, and then you can use it right for Passover. And you gotta, because these things, they're dry, so they're not used with liquid, so they need libun. It's a higher level. It's a different thing, right? So everything has its own rule. Okay, that's good. Now let's talk a little bit about the oven, right? How do you kasher the oven, right? Do you need? By the way, some people, especially in Ashkenazim, they have a special oven for Passover, toaster oven, they don't use the regular oven. You have to do that according to halacha? You don't need this. You don't need a special oven for Passover. This is a chumrah, in the old days, by the way, in the times of the Shulchan Aruch, nobody did this. Nobody had a Passover oven. No such a thing like that. Today, they came up with these new things, And every time, they're more chumrot, right? A pile of chumrot, up to the sky there. You don't need this. You don't need a special oven for Passover. There's not such a thing like that. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Rabbi, some oven is self-cleaner.
Yeah, it's good, if you put that, it's gonna clean it, but the truth is, even if you don't have that, you can use it anyway. You don't really need it. You know what I mean? If you have it, it's good. It'll clean it. It'll be nice and clean. But the truth is, in the old days, they didn't have those things, and they used the oven anyway. There was no self-cleaning. There was no nothing like that. So what does it say in Shulchan Aruch? How do you kasher the oven for Passover? What does it say in Shulchan Aruch? What do you do? Right? So it says Shulchan Aruch, what you got to do is, in the old days, right? They didn't have a gas, like we use today, for the oven, right? Or electric. They had coals, gechalim, right? So what they would do is put the coals, inside the oven, and cover the whole bottom with coals. That's the way they used it in those days. So what it says in Shulchan Aruch, you got to kasher it the same way, Put coals, and burn, put it on full blast, and that's how you kasher it. The same way it went in, same way it comes out, the same thing, right? Again, same thing, the same idea. This is the way you do it, So the way you used it all year is the way you kasher it now. Same way, same method. So what do we do? We don't use coals, right? We don't have that, So what do we have? We have the gas, right? So that's why, put it on the highest, right? The minhag is, you put it on the highest temperature, right? Whatever it is, 600, right? Or broil, right? It says broil. Right? So you put it on top of the highest. You leave it like that for a half hour. That's it. You burned everything there. There's not. You don't have to clean the oven. Because everything got burned. I mean, what's there to clean over there? What are you gonna do? Sit over there for 3 hours and clean the stains? This is a waste of time. Chaval al hazman. You don't have to 3 hours. Cleaning your oven. Everything it gets burned over there. You don't have to clean nothing.
After that, you can use it?
Yeah. That's it. That's the way you do it. That's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. I'm not telling you something new.
Every cleaning inside.
You don't need it. Honestly. If you wanna get some exercise, you can do it for exercise. התעמלות.
usually עושים על זה לחם בפנים. זה בעיה.
Okay, so now let's listen to you. Now I want to listen to you. You're saying that you're making bread over there, right? Lechem, right?
Yeah.
But are you putting it on the walls of the oven, or are you putting it in the tray?
Yeah.
Magash.
Yeah.
So it doesn't touch the oven. That's why it's kosher. That's why, So here's the thing. Let me tell you something interesting now, right? I was wondering, I had a question about this. I'm going to tell you this question. It's going to take a couple of minutes, to explain to you. So this way you understand, right, what I'm talking about. As I told you, right, in the Shulchan Aruch it says, if you want to kasher the oven for Passover, you got to do like this, like what we just said now. Right? That's how you do it. But the thing is, it doesn't talk in the Shulchan Aruch about something else. Which is, if you want to kasher your oven, let's say you got an oven from a goy, right? Let's say the goy lived there, and you moved into the apartment now, right? How do you kasher that oven that the goy was using? What do you do? Same thing, huh? Right? You would think, right? It's the same thing. But the truth is, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say that you have to kasher the oven when you go into a house of a goy. It doesn't say that.
Usually, goy moves from apartment, they put newer.
Not always. If you got a new one, mazal tov, right? Very good. I'm happy for you, But most people don't get a new one. You know what I mean? So the point is, that doesn't say in the Shulchan Aruch when you take an oven of a goy, you got to kasher it. Doesn't say this. I'll tell you also another thing, It doesn't say in the Shulchan Aruch if you're using the oven, right, for basar and chalab, sometimes meat, sometimes dairy, right, cheese, right. Doesn't say to kasher it, from one to the other. Doesn't say this in the Shulchan Aruch. So my question was, why for Passover it says, to kasher it, but for basar b'chalav, and for trefot and nevelot, it doesn't say to kasher it. What is going on here? So I thought, in the beginning, when I was younger, in my younger days, when I was his age, Right? How old are you now?
38.
How old are you now? He's 38. Okay. When I was his age, what I thought? I was a young guy, good, strong like him, Zdarovny. So I thought, that maybe the reason why they tell you to kasher for Passover, but not for the other things, is because, we're machmir, on Passover. That's what the poskim say, right? On Passover, there's more chumrot. Machmirim. So the truth is, it's not correct. There's no chumrot over there. It says in the Shulchan Aruch, you have to do this according to halakha. You need it according to halakha to do this. It's not a chumrah there. There's no chumrot. So then, what's the business over here? Why do I have to, for Passover, I have to kasher the oven? But when it comes to the other things, trefot and nevelot, I don't have to kasher it. It doesn't say nothing about that. So what the answer is? I found out. You know what I did? I looked in the source of this halakha, which is coming from the Geonim. Right? The Geonim, not the new Geonim, the old Geonim, the real Geonim, what I mean? The real guys. So you know what it says over there in the language of the Geonim? It says that you Bukharians, you know about this. Because in the old country, right, this is what you did. If you know. Right? There's also a guy over here, in the restaurant, right? What's the name of this restaurant over here?
This one.
Over here, 99th Street.
Millennium.
Nah, this guy, the bakery. Tandoori. Yeah. So this guy Tandoori,
Not kosher.
I'm not talking about that right now. But anyway, this guy Tandoori, right? His bakery is kosher. You know what I mean? I don't know about his meat, right? His meat is not black kosher. Yeah, I know. Anyway, right? So this Tandoori, what he told me, right? I spoke to him one time. Nice guy. I told him, I said, how do you make your bread? So he says, we have a special oven, the old style, the old country. So what does that mean? They don't put the oven in magashim, in trays. They don't put the bread in the trays. They stick it on the walls of the oven. That's the old style. The good old days. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know, they have the same thing also in Eretz Israel, in Yerushalayim, in Shuk Machane Yehuda, right? In the Shuk over there. They have a bakery, Bukhari bakery. Same thing, you know? They're using it on the walls. Sticking on the walls. Making Bukhari bread. They have it. On Yafo Street. Rehov Yafo. So now, the thing is, this is the way they used to make the bread in the old days, you know? They didn't put it on magashim. They didn't put it on trays, the bread. They put it on the walls. Why do you put the bread on the walls of the oven? Why? What do you need this for? They stick it, you know, like glue, you know?
Cooks better.
Cooks better. He's right. The young man knows, right? He knows. Right? It bakes better this way, you know? It has a better taste. Has a special taste, you know? That's why this guy, you know, he has good bread. I mean, his bread tastes special. Same thing also over there in Israel, you know? This guy, you know, over there, he has good bread, you know? Good Bukharian bread. So now here's the thing, right? This is the way they used to make bread in the old days, you know, on the walls. So now I say, this is the reason why it says over there, this is the reason why you need to kasher the oven. Because the bread is touching the walls of the oven. It's not on the tray. You understand? It's not the same thing. Because when you put it on the tray, it doesn't touch the oven. So there's nothing there. You know, just gas. You know, the gas doesn't trace the oven. Only the touching, you know, actual maga, touching. So here's the thing now, right? According to this, what I found out, that we don't use the ovens this way, right? We don't do this in our house, you know? We don't stick it on the wall. What, are you crazy? Who does this? Only tandoori does. This guy, right? Tandoori. So the thing is, you know, since it's not touching the walls of the oven, the bread, it doesn't need to be kasher at all. That's the amet. That's a chidush that I found out, you know, according to the iyun. So the truth is, you know, I tell you honestly, the minhag is to do, as we said, right? The minhag is to do full blast, right? You know, half hour. But the truth is, you know, you don't need to kasher the oven. If the food doesn't touch the walls of the oven. What I'm sorry, Nechila. So magash, you know, you got to get a new one, right? Go to the store, you know, buy nice aluminum trays, right? And use a new one. Why use the old one, right? The commenting one, you know, you don't have to use that. That's it. The reshet, yes, but don't put the food on the reshet, right? Put it in the magash. That's it. That's it. It's not touching the reshet. That's the whole thing, you know. So the truth is, according to what I discovered, you know, the oven is fine as it is. The only thing you really have to do is just to use a new tray, right? Buy new trays for Passover, you know. Chadash. Go to the store, you know, buy 5 of them, and you're set. You're all set for Passover. Same thing, by the way, applies to the microgal, you know, the microwave oven. Same thing, you know, over there also. If it's not touching the walls of the microwave, you put something in there, it's just air, right? Not touching the walls. That's it. Same thing. Which one is easier, you know, the microwave or the oven, the gas oven? So the truth is, you know, microwave doesn't get so hot like the gas oven. So gas oven gets really, really hot, you know, super hot. But the microwave, not so much like the gas oven. So of course I can, you know, if it's good for the gas oven, all the more so it's good for the microwave. You understand? So the only thing you need to do, I'll tell you, honestly, you know, for these ovens, according to what I'm telling you, just remove the chametz. You know, if you see any chametz in there, just remove it. Clean it out a little bit, you know. Take a rag, you know, smartut, you know, right? Tiyapka, you know, with some soap. Clean the oven, right? The microwave I'm talking about, microwave. Right? Clean the oven, and that's it. You're good to use. You know, you can use it for Passover. Baruch Adonai Leolam. אמן ואמן. רבי חנן, אתה שומע? רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לצקות ישראל. לפיכך חיבה להם תורה ומצווה, שנאמר אדוני חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר. אמן. אמן.